So can you tell us what these fire tornadoes look like and where exactly they touch down?
Yeah, so there were 5 fire tornadoes in just 2 hours between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time on Saturday. And you have to keep in mind, these are not little fire whirls like you sometimes see in the flames on even a stove or a campfire. These were actual tornadoes made out of fire. And what happened, you had all the smoke go up, an incredible amount of buoyancy thanks to the heat released by the fire. And that took on the characteristics of a supercell thunderstorm. The entire smoke plume starting to rotate. And you had at least 5 tornadoes of fire and smoke drop down, with winds likely between 160 and 200 kilometers per hour.
You know, these images, when we're looking at them, they acted.
Let's get more on this now from Matthew Cappucci, an atmospheric scientist. Matthew, thank you very much for your time. Outside the Rugby World Cup, possibly the Grand Prix, what impacts are you expecting from this?
Well, Hagibis is an extremely impressive storm. It spent 2 bouts as a Category 5 hurricane equivalent. Of course, it's a typhoon in the Pacific, but it rapidly intensified early Sunday night into Monday morning. In just 24 hours, it went from...
So looking ahead, are there any other storms that are on the horizon we need to start paying attention to?
Right now, thankfully, we have a period of quiescence thanks to something called a convectively coupled Kelvin wave. Sounds kind of scary. Basically, it's this big overturning circulation in the upper atmosphere. And right now, we're over the subsiding branch of that, which suppresses air, pushes it down. So the Atlantic looks to remain quiet for about 2 weeks' time, but it looks like towards the end of August into early September, as we get under the rising branch of that, we'll see more hurricane activity around the same time as the climatological peak of hurricane season. In addition, we have a La Nina, very warm ocean temperatures, so it looks like September will be a very busy month.
Wow. All right, Matthew, appreciate.
Southwest communities have been asked to leave.
Yeah, that's correct. Unfortunately, that area, Lake Charles, bore the brunt of this storm. When the storm moved through last night, it was affected by the northern eye wall. So essentially this donut of very strong winds, upwards of 200 kilometers per hour, that circle around the eye. And Lake Charles was under that for about 2 hours' time, and then the eye, and then another 2 hours of the southern eye wall. So they really saw the worst conditions, even though they were well inland. In addition, we had a significant storm surge of several meters as well. But that chemical fire ongoing right now, we have one of the largest oil refineries in the world in this area, or at least in the United States. So many power plants, many chemical plants, and a lot of areas that were severely affected by this storm.
Matthew, thanks.
So what is the situation on the ground?
You know, it's like a big old tornado went through. I'm seeing pretty significant damage behind me right now. I'm on the side of Interstate 10, a major thoroughfare, and on the westbound side, all but one lane is blocked by trees. Here you see a couple trees toppled, blocking the breakdown lane, but earlier on, I was driving in from the east, and it was virtually impassable at some places. I saw significant damage to a steel truss building that was leveled, a big industrial building of some sort. I saw numerous mobile homes either flipped, destroyed, de-roofed over in the town of Sulphur. Numerous restaurants damaged heavily as well, some with shattered windows, projectiles having moved through into the building, and multiple tractor trailers, semi-trucks, flipped, toppled, even pushed off the highway. On the side of the highway right now, you can actually see a lot of water down in the culvert. This area saw upwards of 20 centimeters worth of rainfall. And where I was, about 6 or 7 kilometers off to the west, we saw wind gust to 200 kilometers per hour nearby.
One of the big concerns with this storm was the storm surge.
To you, is the nature of this storm connected to broader changes that are happening in our climate?
So it's impossible to connect any one event with climate change. That said, this fits into an overall pattern that's a bit alarming. You know, for the past 4 years, we've seen Category 5 hurricanes in the Atlantic. That's never happened before. And so with climate change, we're not expecting to see more hurricanes, but those that form will likely be significantly more intense going forward.
And I was mentioning earlier that Hurricane Dorian is not moving very quickly. Why is that?
Correct. So right now there's kind of a battle in the atmosphere as to who picks up Dorian. There's a high pressure ridge off to the east, a low pressure off the west, and neither right now is connected with Dorian. So it's just sitting and spinning. It's like a game of tug of war, but no one's holding the rope. This thing can just sit and spin. It's been moving west at about 2 kilometers per hour, barely walking pace, in fact, less than walking pace. And so you have 3.
We are looking at some satellite pictures of its trajectory. When is Marco expected to make landfall in Louisiana?
It's actually brushing the area right now with winds gusting upwards of 55 kilometers per hour in southern Louisiana. But the bigger issue, very heavy rainfall. Some areas may see 10 or more centimeters worth of rainfall, and the outer bands of Marco have already produced tornadic waterspouts, and there's a tornado potential in southern Louisiana today. And that looks to ride westwards along the coast. The bigger issue becomes Laura, which does have the propensity to rapidly intensify late on Tuesday when it emerges over the Gulf, and it could become a major hurricane.
So this is a 1-2 punch, but Laura's got the better right hook. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, it looks like that right now. The biggest issue at this point, we just don't really know whether or not it will remain intact.
Of course, in the midst of a pandemic, how difficult do you see that recovery phase once we have crossed this the storm?
That's a very tricky element of it, because with storm shelters, you have a lot of people all in one communal area. And now there's so many hoops we have to jump through in order to get that. In fact, the American Meteorological Society recently put out a statement saying if you do go to a storm shelter, you're responsible for your own masks, sanitizers, and they're working with state and local officials to make sure you can maintain social distancing while in the shelter. So it's difficult going in, and it will be kind of interesting to see how people evolve after the fact in terms of the cleanup process in the wake of a pandemic.
All right, for more on this now, we want to pull in a meteorologist who is following the storm with us, Matthew Cappucci. He is watching everything from Washington, D.C. Good evening to you, Matthew. He told me tonight, you can expect at least one Dorian every season now. I mean, that's sobering news, right? Because there's no way really to make that not happen.
To me, that sounds a little bit extreme. What I will say is that storms are likely to become strong. So we have a couple ingredients we're watching. You mentioned the warmer ocean waters. Hurricanes feed off this fuel, this warm ocean water, to really get them going. So more of that will favor stronger hurricanes in the future. We're not seeing a trend for more hurricanes, but those that form will be stronger. In addition, you mentioned sea level rise. So now, if you have the ocean water rising, let's say, half a meter over the course of 50, 60 years, all of a sudden it's a lot easier for coastal areas to flood with the same storm. So not only is the flooding and all the side effects getting worse, but we're also seeing the storms get worse. So there's that. In addition, for every degree Celsius we increase in temperature, the atmosphere can hold 7% more water. So when you have storms like Dorian stall, they have that much more rainwater to tap into, and you can get some extreme rainfall totals like we saw in 2017 with Harvey. So a multifaceted threat going forward, but the storm dynamics are really shifting, and climate change is part of the cause.
All right. Well, we know that a lot of people, especially in the Caribbean, in the Bahamas, on the eastern seaboard of the United States, they're going to be watching to see if they're in that cone to see what this hurricane does for the next couple of days. All right, Matthew, it's good to have you on the show. We appreciate you taking the time to talk with us tonight. Thank you, Matthew.
Why is this all happening, and why is it such a big deal?
Yeah, so it really is a big deal. You mentioned 6 to 11 degrees above normal. The temperatures in many of the Great Lakes, about what you'd see this time of year off the outer banks of the Carolinas or down off coastal Virginia. So very toasty stuff. The reason being a big old heat dome, big region of high pressure sitting there and spinning away. And what it does is twofold. Number one, it's warm. So you have warm air, warm water nearby. But secondly, more importantly, this big dome of heat pushes all the storm systems up and over. So you're really not getting much in the way of cloud cover, precipitation, anything like that to cool the water. So much like having a bird bath or bathtub outside.
On record, what does it tell us about this year's Atlantic hurricane season?
So Atlantic hurricane season right now has actually been off to a slow start prior to Dorian. We're only in the D's in terms of the names, which are alphabetical, and normally we'd be pretty much towards like F, G, H right now. So it was a slow start. That said, we're moving towards a climatological peak of hurricane season when the waters are the warmest, the hurricanes are really getting going. And I think these stronger storms could be a trend alluding to a future more peppered with these severe storms thanks to climate change.
Compared to other hurricanes you've seen in the past?
You know, to be honest, this is one of the most memorable windstorm events that I've seen. The entire eye wall was like a 60-kilometer wide tornado with winds gusting upwards of 210 kilometers per hour. I was driving down Interstate 10 westbound, and there was just tree after tree after tree down. In fact, it was pretty much impassable unless you went to the far left lane, and tractor trailers were toppled on their sides.